For those of you that missed the announcements, this is episode 1 of Small Bore Big Adventures. What happens when you take your son 9,176 kilometers on small bore motorcycles all the way from central Alberta to the Arctic Ocean, Alaska, Yukon, and the Northwest Territories. Now, if you'll oblige me, this is a framework episode, so we're going to cover context. This is our map of where we went. This is actually my tracker. Now, if you notice, 2 provinces, 2 territories, and 1 state. Twice, because we really liked it. This episode will be mostly just film running in the background. I will talk a little bit about the clips, but this is about setting the framework for the trip because I have a lot of footage, almost 900 gigabytes worth, to cut through, and there are some great sub-adventures within this. So I wanted to spend one episode where we basically just fly along and I explain to you what this is going to be like over the next 5 to 7 episodes, I'm thinking probably. 900 gigabytes is a lot of footage, so we're going to see how it goes, but I hope to present only things that I would watch again, and that hopefully is a high enough bar that you all can enjoy this as well. Well, first thing we have to cover is the why. Now, going to the north, in my opinion, is something that we should all do. However, just going there is not really that new of an adventure for me. What is new about this is taking my son there. He's never been north of Grand Prairie, which, for those of you that aren't Albertan, is not really far north. It's arguably not that south. But why the north? Well, the north holds a special place in my heart. I've spent a significant portion of my career as an aircraft maintenance engineer working in the middle north and the high north, as well as some international locations. But I've spent a lot of time up here. And for a lot of the years when my kids were younger, I was gone, and I'd always talked about stories of these places. And early on, when they were about 8 or 10 years old, I talked to my 2 younger children and said that when they turned 18, that we would take a motorcycle trip up to this area so they can see where I'd been all of those years. And so here we are. My son James just turned 18, just graduated, and why not take a 3-week-long adventure with your dad? We're still on talking terms, so we could probably do it, right? Secondly, why did we take small bore dual sports, not big adventure bikes? Well, partly because I enjoy doing things like this. Illogical, irrational, and arguably the butt end of a lot of jokes. But realistically, as we found out in the course of this trip, or more specifically James found out, they actually are very well suited to this type of travel. In the north, everything goes on northern times, which means you arrive when you arrive. But it's best arriving in one piece, and having 10 or 12 inches of suspension and a light bike is of great value. Now, as we met people as we were going up in the south, we were the butt end of a little bit of jokes and a little bit of sneering, in all honesty, of people that really felt that our bikes were ill-suited to this adventure. As we got further and further north, that turned into a little bit of envy. There were a lot of people with some big bikes that very much wished and were quite open about the fact that they wish they had gone on smaller bikes. There are some compromises to be made, but honestly, this is a way better idea than you think it is, and I'm going to be super happy to share this with you over the course of the next 5 to 7 episodes. Now, we were gone for 23 nights. Of the 23 nights, we tented 22 of the nights. I think it'll be probably about episode 4. We're going to talk about the one night we did not tent, and all the things that can go wrong when you're using an app up in the north that you don't have data for, and maybe has less than reliable information. But 22 nights we tented, which means that we had everything that we need for camping on these bikes. Now, there's 2 episodes on my channel that cover our bike builds. I hopefully will do one at the end once I pick myself up off the ground. That was brought to you by Tim. Tim told me that I would crash twice on this trip. And I said, oh, of course not. I'm not going to crash. I'm on a road bike, and we're just doing easy gravel roads and stuff. It'd be utterly ridiculous to crash on this bike. But thanks to Tim bringing it up, I did in fact crash twice, and I broke 2 things, one of them being my jet boil. So thanks, Tim. I'm hoping at the conclusion of these videos, because I am quite excited to start sharing these, that I'll also do a video about what we carried for camping gear. We've kind of refined it over the last couple of years, but I think we found a really good balance of value versus quality, and honestly, I think it's a reasonably good setup for people to copy or to work off of, and I'd be interested to see what people have to say about it. Now, at this point, I can reasonably say with pretty good data that our gear held up really well. We were gone 23 days. We had 5 days total without rain. Now, that doesn't mean that we were rained on the entirety of all of the other days, but we had everything from rain to lightning to hail twice. and even threatened snowfall once. So this gear has been battle tested. James there in this picture, my son, this is his first mega adventure, and he took it like a champ. That was a lot to ask of somebody. I think we averaged about 500 kilometers a day on our riding days. We did take 3 days break for rest days and a little bit of maintenance that needed to be done just on the preventative style. But overall, I think that we can definitively say that our gear held up really well in this trip. But now, with the rough context being done, let's get on to some storytelling. Now, I feel compelled to always tell these stories in a chronological sense. So, obviously, at the beginning of the clips, we're on the flatland prairies, or as I believe it's parkland. Then we get into Jasper, which honestly is beautiful. The Eastern Rockies, or the Eastern Slopes, grandiose mountain, 10,000 feet. And then we ended up in the Highland interior, which honestly it's kind of neat. There were some lakelands and so on. But then we decided to go down. Once we turned on the Stewart Cassiar Highway at Mazaidan Junction, we headed west to go to the coast into Stewart BC, as somebody had suggested it. Absolutely stunning road. I believe it's only about 60 kilometers long from Mazaidan Junction to the coast, which goes to Stewart and Hyder, Alaska. Now, it's interesting because this trip took us through so many different biomes. We are on day 5, I believe, or day 4 on this trip, and we have already been through 5 distinct biomes. Now, we did cover a lot of miles, but it was just amazing how quickly everything shifted. What we have here is, I believe, temperate rainforest, but it's kind of got just a grandiose Lord of the Rings-esque vibe. Not quite as dry as Lord of the Rings, it's a little bit wetter. But it was just absolutely stunningly beautiful. Now, obviously, the rain was on and off through the day, but it kind of added to the dark mood of the place. This is in Stewart. It was funny. It was Canada Day while we were here, and I go up to this restaurant, Toastworks, I believe is the name, where it was the only place that seemed open in town, and I really wanted some fish and chips. So I go into this place, and Toastworks is a Argentinian restaurant, because of course it is. That makes total sense. Why would you have just a normal fish and chips place on the ocean in a fishing village? It's cool, pretty neat. It has all kinds of old toasters and stuff on the wall there, and a really cool vibe to it. The service was interesting. Everything was handmade, from the tortillas and so on. But I asked the woman that owned this place, I said, do you have any fish and chips? And she said, no, we do not have fish and chips. We have Argentinian food. And I'm like, well, do you have anything made with local fish? Because we're on the ocean. And she's like, no, we ship it all back from Argentina. And that just struck me as infinitely funny. It was great, like super awesome, these little mahi-mahi tacos. But it was really weird to be doing that in Stewart, BC. Why can't I just get some nice halibut? That would have been great. This was a great road to ride. Super curvy. There was a little bit of a construction on it, but overall the condition of the road was a little bit bumpy, but pretty good for our bikes. And the overall mood of this ride was just amazing. We did come across the glaciers you saw earlier in the video there. I believe that is the Bear Glacier. But the waterfalls that were continuously falling, I mean, we're kind of midsummer here, so it should be a little bit of spring runoff. There was some snow down to our level, as the road is quite high. But the clouds just added just this majestic mood to it. And the green, it just popped. I know these cameras kind of play around with the color a little bit, but honestly, this is pretty close representation. It was just amazing to see. I love waterfalls. I love lakes. Love rivers. But this area, it instantly goes up to probably a top 8 places in Canada that I've been to for beauty. It'd be interesting to go through when it's full sky blue to see if it would feel any different, whether the clouds kind of added to that the mood to make it more special or not. But it was also I believe this is day 4, it was also the 4th straight day of rain. So we were pretty soaking wet. Maybe that helped the mood, maybe it didn't. Here we are going north, back onto the Stewart Cassiar Highway, where we ended up at Dease Lake at the end of the day. And that's really where the adventure starts. The Stewart was kind of unexpected, but as we come to the end of this video, the next segment of this video will be Telegraph Creek in the north part of the Stewart Cassiar, and this for me is where the adventure really begins. So I am just hyper excited to share this. It was a very special time with me and my son doing all kinds of cool stuff, going to cool places that most of you probably never heard of, or maybe you have heard of them and it's just you're poking in. But I think that there will be a lot of good footage here, and I'm hoping to provide a little bit of story, a little bit of history with this area over what was just an absolutely amazing trip over 23 days with my son, and really couldn't have asked for any more. So until next video, we'll sign off. Hopefully it'll be about a week to 2 weeks before the next video will come out, but this will be a little bit of a journey for us. So thanks a lot for joining.